The Babylon Project was our last best hope for sci-fi, a self-contained podcast 1 hour long located on the internet, a place of fun and discussion for Babylon 5 fans everywhere, a shining beacon in cyberspace, all alone in the night. It was the dawn of the 20th anniversary of Babylon 5, the year the Great War to free Bab 5 came upon us all. This is the story of the last of the Babylon podcast. The year is 2016. The name of the place is the Babylon Project Podcast.
This is Maggie Egan, your ISN news anchor, and you're listening to the Babylon Project podcast.
Hi there, Babylon 5 fans. You are here with Raul and Jim listening to the Babylon Project podcast. How are you tonight, my friend?
I'm good. Hey, welcome to Season 2.
Yeah, Season 2. Can you believe it? We made it through an entire season. And we've still got listeners. In fact, our listenership is growing.
It's growing, and we're getting a few more responses from folks, and that's really great. It's very much appreciated.
Oh, more than you can imagine, people. More than you can imagine. It's for us, this is more just a labor of love for a show that we really, really enjoyed and meant a lot to us. I'm just really glad other folks are enjoying it as well.
Amen.
So, first episode of Season 2.
Yep.
Points of departure.
Yep, points of departure. We had someone depart. We've had some people come on that weren't there before. In what overall turns out to be kind of an interesting episode.
Yeah, interesting is a good way of describing it tonight.
Mm-hmm.
We also get a new ship being brought into the series.
Yeah, with a cool name.
Totally. The Agamemnon. In fact, that's what our opening scene is, the Agamemnon.
Yes.
It is a destroyer, which is interesting for its classification because the destroyer is quite a bit bigger than the cruiser we saw last season.
Yes. Perhaps before we get into a discussion, we should listen to the summary.
Why don't you take it away from there, Jim?
All right, here it is.
Archive. Access. Initiated.
Captain John Sheridan of the EAS Agamemnon receives a call from his commanding officer, General Haig, explaining that Sheridan is to head for Babylon 5 because there have been several sightings of a ship suspected to be the missing Minbari warship Trigati. Meanwhile, in a log entry being recorded by Ivanova, we learn that she has been in command of the station since Sinclair was recalled to Earth 5 days prior. She further records that Garibaldi remains in a coma and that Delenn is still in her chrysalis. Soon, General Haig calls Ivanova on the station to explain that Sinclair will not be returning to Babylon 5 and that Sheridan will be arriving to take over command. Hedron of the Minbari Grey Council arrives on the station and walks into Delenn's quarters, telling Lanier to let Ivanova know about the Trigati being spotted near the station. Meanwhile, Sheridan arrives on the station ahead of schedule. Ivanova greets him and takes him on a tour and explains the status of the station. At about the same time, a Minbari warrior arrives and consults the computer looking for the green sector of the station. Ivanova finishes Sheridan's tour of the station by taking him to his new quarters. He is happy with what he has seen and is enthusiastic about his new assignment. He explains to Ivanova that it was the wish of the late President Santiago that Sheridan be assigned to command the station should the need ever arise. Ivanova warns that the Minbari may not be happy with this decision because of his role during the Earth-Minbari War. She also notes that the Minbari still call him Star Killer. Sheridan says that they shouldn't be over that by now because the war has been over for quite some time. Hedron finds the Minbari warrior whom he recognizes as Kalain. When Hedron confronts him, Kalain tells him that he is aware that Starkiller has been assigned to command the station and that this is a big mistake. He also tells Hedron that he should leave the station as soon as possible if he values his life. Sheridan arrives in CNC to give his welcome speech, but is interrupted when he is told that a Minbari wants to meet with him about the safety of the station. Sheridan meets with Hedron, who explains that the commanders and crew of the Trigati felt that they were betrayed by the Grey Council when the Minbari surrendered. The Trigati's commander took his own life, and Kalain took command of the warship and went rogue. Hedron tells Sheridan that he has seen Kalain on the station and that he represents a threat. Sinclair surmises that since Kalain feels that he has been betrayed by the Minbari government, he might be there to kill Delenn, the highest-ranking government representative on Babylon 5. He heads to Delenn's quarters. When he arrives, he finds Kalain holding a PPG, threatening Lanier and Delenn. He surrenders without a struggle when ordered to do so by Sheridan. A little later, Sheridan interrogates Kalain, who gives no answers. Lanier arrives and asks to speak with Sheridan. In his office, Sheridan listens as Lanier explains the events of the Battle of the Line and how it was discovered that Sinclair has a Minbari soul. So the Minbari surrendered to stop further destruction of Minbari souls, which they believe are reincarnated in humans. Just then, the Trigati comes through the jump gate with gun ports open. Sheridan heads to CNC, ordering a red alert and that Star Furies be launched. Sheridan manages to talk with the current commander of the Trigati, telling her that attacking the station will be considered an act of war. Diron of the Trigati tells Sheridan that she knows that Kalain is on the station and demands that he be released to them. After Sheridan explains that Kalain is dead, having committed suicide, Diron tells Sheridan that there is nothing left but honor and death, and launches fighters of her own. Outside the station, Lieutenant Keffer prepares to fight the Minbari until Sheridan realizes that the Minbari are not using their stealth technology to thwart the Star Fury's attack. Sheridan orders Keffer to stand down, and the Minbari fighters just fly by. In the meantime, Sheridan orders a narrow-beam transmission sent through the jump gate. Soon, another Minbari cruiser arrives and destroys the Trigati. Sheridan questions his choice as station commander, but Ivanova assures him that he will do well. Lanier continues his vigil with Delenn, and the crew try to enjoy some relaxation time. In the final scene, Delenn's chrysalis cracks open.
Initiating plot analysis.
All right. Thank you again, Jim.
Oh, certainly.
You know, folks, I don't think you really realize those summaries that he puts together actually take a fair amount of work. A little bit of planning, a little bit of voiceover skill. He gets kudos for the extra time and effort he puts into those.
Ah, well, it's all part of the job. That's why I get the big bucks, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's like what? Your wife takes off your pants and shakes them out, and whatever change falls out of pocket's yours?
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but I generally don't carry cash.
Same here. Same here.
So we were talking about the Agamemnon,
right?
A large ship, and captained by Sheridan, Captain John Sheridan. Yeah. And he immediately, before we get to know anything about him, gets a call from General Haig.
Can I point out something?
Yes.
John Sheridan, Jeffrey Sinclair, Joe Straczynski. That's not an accident.
Of course, now, according to what the research that I did, John Sheridan is supposed to be a direct descendant of a General Sheridan under Abraham Lincoln.
Yes. Hence his speech going back,
Yeah.
referencing Lincoln, but...
Philip,
yeah.
General Philip Sheridan is what I understand the name was.
Uh-huh. And General Haig has a favor to ask.
Yes.
Well, we don't know about the favor he's asking, but what we do know about is his new orders.
Yeah.
For Sheridan. We'll learn about the favor.
Yeah. Should we talk about who's in this, though? Because we have new cast and guest stars and all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, first of all, we've mentioned John Sheridan.
Right.
And he is played by the one, the only, Bruce Boxleitner.
Yeah. Who also appeared in such geeky things as Tron, Outer Limits, and is going to be in another Tron movie. A few years out. There's no date on it yet or anything like that. And we also know that he was married to Laura Ingalls Wilder. No, I'm sorry, Melissa Gilbert. Yes, of Little House on the Prairie fame.
And
yeah,
another interesting side fact, Boxleitner is a sci-fi geek. So he for him, this role was kind of a wow thing.
Oh well,
he really got into the, like I said, he had a reputation for being a sci-fi fan. We have another new cast member as well.
Yes, Robert Russler, who plays a pilot,
Lieutenant Warren Keffer,
who's previously appeared on, who subsequently, appeared on Enterprise. In a small role. But now you mentioned something that
Keffer was not Straczynski's idea. This was the one time where the suits interfered. If you notice as you go through season 2, Keffer gets a fair bit of abuse, right?
Yes.
The suits, as they're known, executive management for the studio,
right,
wanted someone that was sort of the hot stud pilot type character.
Okay.
And they put a lot of pressure on Straczynski to give them what they wanted. They thought it would help the show. Hence Warren Keffer.
Well, yeah, he might have been a hot pilot, but he sure didn't act like an arrogant person. He was I liked his character a lot. Very even-tempered and did his job.
Yep, but took a lot of heck in the process of the show. And how the character was resolved, shall we say, at this point in season 2, was Straczynski's response to the suits.
And he was only in season 2, right?
Yes, he was only in season 2 specifically. And after that, management did not interfere with him on how to run his show again.
Probably wise.
Yes. Sadly, well, the powers that be didn't take that same approach when Crusade came around.
Oh.
And that had a lot to do with Crusade going away. JMS was not willing to compromise the integrity of what he felt was the integrity of the show for the kind of micromanagement that TNT kept trying to put in. And it wasn't the same office. It wasn't the same group. It was a different group. It was a different group than the ones that let him do the movies and let him finish out season 5 of Bab 5. It was a different group that started futzing in and interfering with it. Yeah.
Well, we have some guest stars.
Indeed.
Also, we have Richard Grove as Kalane.
Correct.
He's been in Quantum Leap, Space Rangers, which I know almost nothing about, Outer Limits, and he appeared on Lois and Clark.
Yeah, a lot of shorts and a lot of voice work from him.
Yeah.
Now...
And go ahead.
I was going to say, now, we have someone else who is, I believe, making his first appearance in Babylon 5, but it is not by far going to be his last.
No, that's true. Robin Sachs as Hedron.
Yes. And this is someone that a lot of people might be a little more familiar with.
Mm-hmm. He was Silver Surfer in the TV attempt at Fantastic Four. Made an appearance on Voyager, Star Trek Voyager, and Lost World Jurassic Park.
Right.
Other than that, I don't know a great deal about him.
And he plays several roles in Babylon 5.
Are you sure we haven't talked about him before?
Let's see.
I'm trying to remember if he was in season 1 at all.
No, the first he shows up in All Alone in the Night.
Okay.
And then later on, he'll show up as War Leader Nakal in The Fall of the Night and in Walkabout.
Okay.
And he will be Natak in Movements Fire and Shadow and The Fall of Centauri Prime.
Ah, okay.
So he is an Arn for most of his Babylon 5 appearances.
All right. Cool. And then we have a special guest star. What's the difference between a guest star and a special guest star?
I have no idea. Probably the prominence of the actor.
Are you sure it's that, or maybe it's the number of zeros after the...
What they have after the check? Yeah, I rather think, Jim, it's probably a lot of both. Prominence and cost.
Yeah, right. Okay, so anyway, he played in Omen 2, Beyond the Stars, which is something that I've never seen. Don't know a great deal about, but I think I'm going to look into that. Sequest 2032, which I believe was the last season of Sequest. Of course, it started out with Sequest DSV.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Outer Limits, The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest, another one I've never seen.
And one I probably won't see myself.
Stargate SG-1, I'm not a Stargate fan at all. He was on Enterprise.
Wait. You're not a Stargate fan?
No, I'm not.
Have you watched the series or just the movie?
I saw the movie a long time ago.
Same here, and I hated it.
Well, I didn't hate it. I enjoyed what I saw of it, but it was like, oh, okay, well, that was nice.
I was quite a bit worse than that. I actively disliked the movie.
Yeah.
And I would not touch the series for anything.
No, I've seen a couple of episodes of Stargate, but it just never grabbed a hold of me at all.
The series, you need to take, maybe just like Babylon 5, you need to give it, 2 or 3, 4 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
It's very episodic, but you probably do want to take the episodes in order.
Well, maybe one day I'll have time to do that.
It's worth giving it a try, and the series is available on Amazon Prime.
Okay. He was on Enterprise as a Vulcan and Deep Space Nine.
Which is the important one.
Yeah, as a corrupt admiral. It seems like all the admirals in Starfleet just kind of go off the deep end, and I don't know why.
Kirk.
Except for Kirk.
Well, no, of course he gets busted back down to captain.
Right, because he didn't know how to do it the right way, I guess. I don't know. And also he did some voice work in Transformers.
His appearance on Deep Space Nine is what is important to Babylon 5 fans because it had a huge impact on the show.
Okay, tell us about that.
Well, General Haig was going to be coming back when things heated up between Babylon 5 and Earth, when things got a little more active, shall we say.
Uh-huh.
And unfortunately, he was engaged in the shooting of DS9 at the same time that Babylon 5 had to do their filming.
Oh.
As well. So he wasn't available. And as a result, they had to write around that at first and then ultimately write out the character. Okay. And they found a fairly elegant way of doing that, of course.
Oh, well, yeah.
All right. If you remember the episode where the rotating section of the cruiser got shot through, that was where General Haig was killed.
Ah.
Now, there's another important aspect of General Haig. Or sorry, not General Haig, but Robert Foxworth.
Mm-hmm.
He was also in the running to take over as the new commander of Babylon 5, as the new captain, rather, of Babylon 5.
Oh.
However, they went with Box Leitner, and the result was he was available to do this role, this recurring role as General Haig.
Oh, how neat.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
There's one more actor involved here.
Yes.
And he played Security Guard 1, Greg Wrangler. And you know what? I don't know why. Maybe it's just the way he looks or something. He reminded me of somebody, and hasn't really been in a whole lot of stuff. He's been in some soap operas and things like that, but nothing huge stands out to me. But I just wondered why this guy's face stood out to me. He's not a bad looking guy too, you know.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget, we do have Lou Welch showing up again.
Yes. So we should probably get back into our show discussion.
There is one other new character that has to be mentioned.
Okay.
And it's a very important new character. The Agamemnon herself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that one will be back. That's true.
I mean, that was, in my opinion, when I first saw it, that was one of the coolest ships I had remembered seeing in science fiction for quite some time.
Oh, yeah. And
just the design.
It comes back and it gets mentioned again throughout the run of the series.
And we see it more than once.
Yes.
It'll be back again and again.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a ship. I mean, yes, we'll find other destroyer class ships, but the Agamemnon kind of gets almost a special place as a character.
Yep.
There'll be another ship that does that too, but we'll get to that next season.
All right.
Anyway, as you had noted in the summary, there's a renegade Minbari warship out and about, and General Haig needs Captain Sheridan to give a little help to Babylon 5 on this.
Yep.
In a fairly long-term position, it seems.
Yeah, and we get a new commander. He's informed that he is going to. Well, he's informed in a roundabout sort of way that he is going to be taking over the station, not directly right away, but
correct.
When we cut to another scene, we get Susan doing a summary of what has happened over what is about what is about 8 days since the end of
about 8 days, correct.
Since the end of the first season.
Yes, and let's just say Susan is a bit cranky about it all. Because Sinclair has been recalled to Earth.
Right. And
she is stuck alone.
Right. She's in command. Garibaldi's out of it. She's running the station, and she has really no assistant. She's by herself.
And in fact, Jerry Doyle has made some jokes about these first couple episodes. Some of the easiest acting he's ever had to do. He just sort of lays there.
Yeah, just lay there and breathe.
So, Sinclair's been recalled to Earth.
Yeah.
General Haig gives Susan a call.
Right.
To update her on the situation.
Yep.
And that's where we find out that Sinclair is going to Minbar.
Yes, at the request of the Minbari, of course.
And that is not insignificant. That is not simply writing him out of the story.
Oh.
That's an extremely important point of, well, especially seasons 2 and 3, and I guess to a large degree 4.
Mm-hmm.
So now we get to the opening credits.
Right.
New opening credits, folks. They're similar to season 1. The music's a little bit different, but they're much more concise. And of course, Captain Sheridan's doing the opening monologue instead of Commander Sinclair.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's something to note about this. When Straczynski wrote the series, each season was its own chapter.
Right.
And in fact, each season had, as we had mentioned before, its own title. Season 1, if you remember, was Signs and Portents, which we had discussed in depth. In Season 2, the title of the season is The Coming of Shadows.
Yes.
So we'll learn just what that means as we progress, but we've kind of got an idea already, just from some of the actions going on with Londo and some particularly mysterious benefactors.
Yeah.
That seem to be almost shadowy in themselves.
Right. Yep. And Coming of Shadows is, and even in the opening credits, we see a shadow vessel.
Uh-huh.
We're not supposed to know that's what it is yet, but that's what it is. A shadow
Oh,
vessel.
that was pretty much guessed very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing I like about this, the advisement of the assignment, change in assignment, it's coming from the military now, not from some Senate oversight committee.
Right.
Yay!
At the orders of, or at the request of President Santiago.
Yeah, that was actually interesting.
Yeah.
We find this out a little bit later when Susan and Sheridan are talking, that Sheridan was Santiago's first choice for a replacement.
Yeah. And we'll get to that in a minute.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
Don't let me forget, because I've got some questions about that.
Okay. I might have some questions also.
Uh-huh.
So, Lanier has some gaps to fill in for us in this show.
Right. He is met by Hedron, who has specific instructions for him.
Yes.
To fill in the reasons behind the war.
Yeah.
And the reasons behind the surrender.
And Hedron isn't all that happy about what Delenn has gone and done.
No, not at all. I find it interesting that he was able to find out so quickly.
So Hedron is Grey Council.
Right.
Who was the Grey Council member that gave Delenn the Triluminary?
Rothen.
Okay.
And I've gotten those two confused more than once. I wouldn't be surprised if, as we look through my notes, we see the name Rothen show up.
Those two look a lot alike.
Right.
The Rothen's actor, the man that played Rothen, was a little bit heftier, bigger, more muscular and everything. And I thought Hedron was Rothen, who had lost some weight or something.
But we won't see.
Okay.
We will not see Hedron again.
Okay, at least not as Hedron. We'll see the actor again. But
right, it's almost like the Minbari being reborn as Narn too, huh?
Right. Yeah. Okay, now you've got in here fresh oranges.
Fresh oranges. That's sort of a trademark with Sheridan. You know how, like at the end of the episode, after his speech, he's tossing the orange.
Right.
Watch as we go through the season. You see a lot of oranges showing up around Sheridan.
Okay. I'll have to watch for that.
Yeah, it sort of becomes his trademark.
Okay.
And as he's getting the tour from Susan, he is getting a status report.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Jakar's missing, Mike's hurt, the place is going to hell in a handbasket, and the Minbari ambassador's in a cocoon, and probably the best way to do this is let Susan tell it herself in the way that only she can do it.
Chief of Security's in critical condition in MedLab. He thinks there's a conspiracy concerning the president's death. Ambassador Jakar has mysteriously vanished. After 2 years, we still don't know what Ambassador Kosh looks like inside his encounter suit. And Ambassador Delenn is in a cocoon.
A cocoon? As in a moth or a butterfly?
Yes, sir. About yay high.
Interesting place you have here.
Yes, sir.
So, and I was also going to throw in there that Susan's report also mentions that there's Kosh on board who never appears outside of his encounter suit.
Yep. Then Susan asks the obvious. This was the question that I had brought up a little while ago, and you had suggested we put off.
Mm-hmm.
Why a real military man? And why was he Santiago's first choice for replacement? For me, that doesn't quite make sense.
No, it doesn't, because we have Sheridan, who is not very popular with the Minbari.
Uh-huh.
And Santiago was all about improving relations with the other races. And Sheridan would not have been a good choice for this.
If you're trying to improve the relations, he's probably the worst possible choice you could have made.
Yeah. Now, I would think that from what we know about what's coming down the road with President Clark, that he would be more likely to appoint Sheridan.
Correct.
So do we have Clark claiming, perhaps, I mean, this is not in the story or anything, but you know, you think maybe that Clark might have prompted this, tell him that Santiago wants him?
Oh, I have no doubt about that whatsoever.
And so that's why he got appointed?
With no consultation. In fact, the fact that it happened with no consultation with any of the Babylon 5 Council, with no consultation of the League Worlds, that he was just shoveled into the position, tells me that, yeah, you got that exactly correct.
Well, and not only that, but if we recall, Sinclair was in specifically because the Minbari wanted him in there.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, he was way down on a very long list of possibilities to command the station.
Right.
And if the Minbari had been consulted, the Star Killer would have never, ever been considered for that position.
Yeah. In fact, to use the flip side of your phrasing, Sheridan was there because he was the very last person the Minbari wanted in that post.
Yes.
Yeah. It turns out there's other reasons and purposes behind Sheridan's presence there, and that's going to involve the favor in some of Haig's future appearances.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say at this point that I remember you expressing some concerns or questions about what's going on at EarthGov in the past during Season 1. And Sheridan is certainly a response to that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll see that as time goes on.
Yep.
We get more Bester.
Yeah, but first, Sheridan does have to give his good luck speech.
Yeah, I love that.
That was amusing.
Yeah, and you can just picture him doing this. Okay, I do this every time I take command of a new place, and I got to do it here.
Uh-huh.
He gets up to give his speech, and of course,
he's interrupted. Boom.
All hell breaks loose.
Naturally. One thing I did want to note, at least now we have a captain in the role of captain of the station.
Right.
So we don't have that captain versus commander issue coming up anymore.
However...
Oh, you're just going to make it difficult.
There's always got to be a however, just like there's always a boom. Time in grade also makes a difference.
Yeah.
So, another captain comes along that has more time in grade than Sheridan does, and we could wind up with another one of those contests, but I don't believe that happens.
No, it doesn't happen.
Again.
We don't go that route here, at least.
No.
While all this is going on, Hedron recognizes Kalain from the Trugati.
Yes.
As we said earlier, he seems awfully well informed, doesn't he?
Oh, yes. Well, he's Grey Council. He better be.
Well, not according to him, but yeah. It turns out that he's the one updating the command staff regarding Kalain and the Trugati.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this, Hedron does have a bit of a lousy attitude where humans are concerned.
Yeah, he does.
Especially Sheridan.
Yeah, he tries to assert himself.
Uh-huh. And what's great, at least at this point, this is one of the differences between Sheridan and Sinclair. Sheridan is a little less hesitant to push back.
Oh, and well, yeah, he jumped right back in the guy's face, and you could tell he was not going to back down at all. Sheridan, at this point, at least, is seems like a nice person, but he's not a diplomat.
He is not a diplomat, as he makes it plain. Well, throughout, he's a soldier.
Yeah.
And talking to Susan after Hadron leaves, we find out that he didn't just take out the Black Star, their flagship. He took out 3 heavy cruisers with him.
Yeah.
But he did it with fusion bombs.
Right.
Since we couldn't lock on, he mined asteroids and lured them into a trap. And a fusion bomb doesn't have to be, it's not exactly what you would call a precision instrument.
Mm-hmm. And Sheridan, he just absolutely, he doesn't act like it's any big deal. There was not a lot of strategy to it. We just had to get the job done.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, and that's part of what has to do with some of the Minbari bad attitude.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, he didn't face us open combat. Well, heck, you want to face him in open combat, turn off your stealth technology so they can actually fight face to face.
Yeah, but we get a little more on this in just a few minutes. Okay, before that, of course.
Well, before that, Sheridan and Lanier kind of worked together and rescued Delenn.
Yeah. Kalain is in Delenn's quarters pointing a PPG at her, and Lanier intercedes. And, I think we need to play the clip of what Lanier says here.
If you are going to kill me, then do so. Otherwise, I have considerable work to do.
Yeah, that is a great comment.
It is. And I'll tell you what, it goes to show you that even though Lanier comes across as mild-mannered and meek and a very nice young man,
and a kid, basically.
Yeah, if I can be excused to say it, the guy's got some cojones.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He was not going to back down. He was unarmed, and he just stood there and, you're going to do this. You're going to do it over my dead body.
And he takes a little bit of that same attitude with Sheridan, too, when Sheridan kind of tries to peek around him. It's like, what's going on? But here we do see the other side of Sheridan. He does have some diplomatic chops, at least.
Well, yeah, but of course, Lanier wasn't threatening him. Wasn't trying to lay down ultimatums and that kind of thing. Lanier was doing his job and being quite polite about it, as Lanier always is.
Then Lanier catches up with them, and we get something we don't see very often in Babylon 5.
Yeah, answers. Now, a question that, he fills him in on the Battle of the Line.
Correct.
And we get a scene of the Grey Council and Delenn just randomly choosing Sinclair.
Yes.
Now, my impression is that Sinclair was chosen because he was Sinclair, not just because he happened to be the closest Star Fury to the ship.
I think you have to be careful here, because this actually involves time travel.
Right. We know what, those of us that have watched the show, we know what Sinclair was. Is. Will be.
Right.
Okay. So the randomness of that kind of threw me off a little bit. Delenn just turned around and pointed and said, that one. And the next thing you know, the ship is stunned.
How does Delenn describe, not regarding this situation, but something further along, faith provides?
That's true.
Basically, the universe speaks and will take care of itself, which is more or less the Minbari equivalent of divine providence.
Yeah, but Delenn was told that, and she defied it and went into her cocoon.
Oh, no, but Delenn went into her cocoon because she did believe it was divine providence, that she is the right person in the right place at the right time, I believe is the way it will be phrased.
Now, the other thing that threw me off, or I shouldn't say it didn't throw me off, but was quite interesting, is that we find that the warrior cast, the commanders of the ships, and everyone that was involved were never told why they were to surrender. They were just told to surrender.
Correct. And you're actually jumping a little bit ahead here because the reason they were told to surrender is important.
Yes.
It turns out that when they interrogated, well, actually, Lanier's honest about it, tortured Sheridan, that they found humans are being born with Minbari souls.
Yeah, they brought that triluminary close to him and it glowed.
Right, which is what I presume they meant when they talked about scanning him.
Yeah.
Because it would only glow in the presence of someone of Valen's descent.
I'm biting my tongue right now.
Why?
Well, it got brought pretty close to Valen, didn't it?
yeah, pretty darn close.
Yeah.
but back to your main point, the Grey Council kept this a secret.
Right.
Only those in the Grey Council knew about it, and I'm going to presume, because of the connection with prophecy, some of the religious caste either knew or suspected.
Yeah. Well, in any case, the warrior caste, the people that conduct war, it was never told to them what the deal was. So of course they're going to be bitter. They were this close to winning. This close.
Well, I think they would be bitter even if they knew. Remember, and here's an interesting thought. This whole bit about the soul is extremely important to the Minbari, especially to the religious caste.
Yes.
And we see that with first presented to us way back in Soul Hunter.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I mean, the reason they formed the wall to protect Dukat, it was to protect the soul. I mean, you do not destroy Minbari, do not kill Minbari. You don't do anything to damage or remove the Minbari souls because you've weakened the race as a whole.
Right. And
that was all laid out for us in Soul Hunter.
But so if that's the case, if the military caste had been told, the warrior caste had been told that this was going on, they hold the same beliefs as the religious caste, do they not?
As I understand it, yes, but they're first... I think they're not as fervent, shall we say. And I'm basing this on... well, actually, I'll take it back a step from that. They might give credence to the words, but they're definitely not as fervent, and I'm thinking Naroon here.
Mm-hmm.
Naroon in late season 3 and beginning of season 4.
Yeah.
When Delenn's taking care of business back home. I think if the warrior caste had known, there might have been more than just the Trigati that went rogue. Based on the way Naroon reacted in a couple seasons.
Okay. We'll have to remember that.
But do you follow what I'm talking about?
I do.
Yeah. But we get an important comment from Lanier.
Yes.
Changes are coming.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Changes have already started. They started last season.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of changes.
Yes.
And in all of this, connected with the Trigati, we see Zeta Squadron, and finally we meet Warren Keffer.
Yes. Who is sitting across from a scantily clad lady that we find out is a hollow letter from his wife.
Uh-huh. Wife or girlfriend? Wife.
Yeah, I think it's his wife. And I thought he was sitting there talking to her. And then she fades out, of course, when the call comes through that they need to scramble.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And he's able to get that kind of a hologram message without an R2 unit.
Yeah, really.
We have the key phrase of the episode coming up when the Trigati arrives.
Yeah. Things start moving really fast now.
Right. Sheridan's trying to talk them down and gets nowhere. And he is told that all that remains now is honor and death.
Yes.
Basically, the Trigati is trying to start a fight.
Yeah.
And I think they're trying to start a fight they know they probably cannot or will not win.
Well, they're trying to bait Sheridan into starting a fight.
Yeah, let them punch first.
Right. and I mean it comes awful close. When those Minbari fighters pass through the Star Furies and they're told not to fire. Okay, but because Babylon 5 can track the Minbari ships now, but they couldn't before.
Yeah, and it's the same scanners that were used during the Earth-Minbari War when they couldn't lock on.
So something is definitely rotten in Denmark.
Uh-huh. And we see that little tower on the docking pylons used for the first and only time to send a tight-coated laser transmission into hyperspace.
Yes.
And, well, basically he calls in the cavalry because he lets the Minbari deal with the Trogati.
Right, which is wise.
Yeah, and, you know, he brushes it off to Susan as if it was more or less a lucky guess.
Uh-huh.
Gee, I just assumed, I figured they had to be hiding there, waiting in hyperspace. Yeah, right.
Well, you know, and then the couple of neat things happen here. I love the way they do this, and they do it several times in over the series. The way the energy beams slice through ships.
Yeah, the slicers.
That is so cool.
And, you know, it was basically a clean disabling of the Trogati.
Yeah.
Basically, they suicide rather than surrender.
Yeah. It's surgical precision.
And, you know, talking about your slicing, one of the things that we're going to see in battles, and it becomes a hazard even, is the debris.
Mm-hmm.
Sliced off parts of ships, debris floating around space, hitting things.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I've seen it in science fiction up to this point.
No, not very often. Now, Sheridan calls the incoming ship that disables the Trogati to thank them for their assistance.
You know what, Jim? The Minbari really don't like Sheridan.
Oh, we definitely get proof of that with that scene, because guy says, "You think we did this, you know, and you think we're happy about this? Well, you got another thing coming, because there were a lot of us that felt the same way."
Yeah. You know, one thing I liked about the episode is, as we're wrapping things up, Sheridan is having a lot of doubts if he should really be there. And for me, that's a good thing. When you put someone in that kind of a leadership position and that kind of power, you want to wield that power and authority with confidence.
Yeah.
But you better be questioning your motives and your responsibility in that position, just to keep you grounded.
You also better be willing to keep an open mind and listen to the people around you who have been there.
Yeah. And he does all that.
Mm-hmm.
He does all that, and he does it well. Let's see. What else in the wrap-up? We have Lanier chit-chatting with Delenn in her cocoon. And we get more answers. This is an answer episode.
Mm-hmm.
An ancient enemy, a new war coming, and more of the reasons why this prophecy is important. Because to win this war, they're going to need both sides of their souls. Yep. Oh. And she hatches. At least starts to hatch.
It cracks open. The cocoon cracks open.
Uh-huh. And we almost wrap up, not quite close, we almost wrap up with Keffer in Earhart's, which is an Earth Force only, military only club.
Yeah. We don't see it very often, do we?
We see it a few times, and that's it. And because it's based on Earhart, if you've ever noticed, there's always jazz, a swing, that period music playing.
Right.
It's in keeping with the theme of the bar, Earhart, named after Amelia Earhart.
Yes.
But some discussion of the commander.
Mm-hmm. And this is what part of the show made me know that Sheridan was going to be okay.
Yes.
Standing in the CNC, giving his speech with not another soul to hear him.
Yeah, during the one time, like every 30, roughly, Straczynski says every 36 to 48 hours, CNC is basically shut down for automated backups.
Mm-hmm.
And he is not going to break his tradition.
No.
No, not at all.
So he gives his speech.
Yep. It is a great first episode. There's a lot of changes. Some of them weren't necessarily planned when the show started.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Sinclair to Sheridan was triggering one of the backdoor options.
Yeah.
But a lot of the changes were definitely planned from the beginning.
Yep.
So we've got the second part of a novel, The Rising Action.
Yep. And you end your notes with a question.
Sheridan or Sinclair? One of the most argued subjects on the show.
Ah, gosh. You know, these kind of questions just, I don't know. They rub me the wrong way.
Uh-huh.
I like both of them. Sinclair, I really liked Sinclair, the actor. I liked him. I liked the way he did things. You know, he looked great in the uniform. He had a lot of strong points, and then, of course, at this first episode of season 2, the first time I saw it on TV, it's like, who is this turkey?
Uh-huh.
How do you compare apples and oranges?
No, you really can't. And I know a big part of the change, you know, we found out for the first time actually just a few years ago when, you know, after Michael O'Hara had passed, that it was due to the mental issues that he was having.
Mm-hmm.
But there was also an element that the direction that the story was taking, would Sinclair really have been able to do the things that were needed to be done as far as the show is concerned?
Yeah.
Which made it more appropriate to have someone like a Sheridan style, a little more messianic character in that regard.
Well, and then, of course, you know, we get the relationship between Sheridan and Delenn. Okay, this is, if Sinclair had stayed on and he had gotten married to
Catherine.
If he had gotten married to Catherine, what would that have done to the whole story?
Yeah, now, of course, if Sinclair had stayed on, that whole relationship would have had to have worked out different. You know, this is a case where, hey, Mitch, how about a little background info? You've got some background resources that we haven't seen, and we haven't heard from you in a while.
Yep.
It's, in fact, I'll throw that one out to anyone if you've got some ideas.
Yeah, Troy Rudder, if you're on the inside of this and know anything, please let us know.
Or someone who has not written to us or contacted us at all yet.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be something that I'd be curious about. How would it have developed if Sinclair had stayed?
Yeah.
You know, and I do remember seeing bits and pieces of this. I think it's like his trip back into time would have been obviously much later.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be curious to know.
I think that's a wrap on this one.
Yeah, there is a lot I liked about it. I cannot think of anything I actually didn't like.
It was overall a good episode. Not a whole lot of philosophical aspects to discuss here or anything like that. It was just kind of a straightforward kind of a show, introducing new characters.
It was establishing. It established the next season.
And gave us some revelations on questions from last season, which of course open up a whole new Pandora's box of questions for the future.
Yep. Yeah, sometimes I would almost just hate it when Straczynski would answer a question because you usually knew that answer came at the price of at least 2 more new questions.
Yeah, at least. But that's why we love him.
Yeah. Well, I had a lot of fun with this episode. And, you know, season 2 and season 3 overall are going to be just an absolutely incredible, a roller coaster ride.
Oh, this is where the meat of the whole series is.
This is the meat of the whole series. Yeah. If you've made it through season 1, or better yet, if you've had doubts about Babylon 5, because you just couldn't get enthused in season 1, we've got that list of the essential episodes for season 1. That'll give you the bare essentials, which is about half the season. Just cherry picks the key episodes. It gives you a few more episodes that you really, really want to watch, that you ought to watch. And then, it separates that from the episodes that really are just sort of standalone-ish. You really should give those episodes the attention. And I'm bringing this up because I know there are some people who are listening because they're wanting to learn about the show.
Yeah. Well,
and haven't really watched the show heavily.
And even then, okay, if you want the full experience, you got to watch the whole thing. So what you do is you listen to all of our commentaries on the episodes from last season, and you'll find that even the ones that we thought were weak episodes, we found a lot of stuff in there that we enjoyed and made those episodes worth watching.
Uh-huh.
So even the weak episodes are strong.
I would say probably the weakest episode of the entire series is Grey 17 is Missing.
It was amusing, though.
But even there, the interaction with Naroon and Marcus was... I love the episode because of the B story.
Yeah.
I love the episode. Definitely. Everything you said is right on target.
So that sounds like we're getting...
I think that sounds like a wrap, and my throat is burning. So I think I've just about emptied my brain, but also emptied my vocal cords ability.
and my bed is calling.
Uh-huh.
Gotta go to work in the morning.
Yeah, that horrible thing called life.
Yeah, I wish we could make a living doing this.
It would be fun, would it not?
Yes.
Oh, no, actually, my ideal job would be to have a coffee and dessert shop, especially the coffee side, where I can spend the off hours when I'm not having to do the business stuff, focusing on writing and recording.
I was asked the other day, actually, what my ideal job would be. And at this point in my life, if I could get paid a livable wage to read books. Read books and write reviews. And I mean, earn what I'm earning now at least, if not more.
Right.
Anybody know how I go about doing that?
Yeah, ditto that here, because when I'm talking about writing, it's going more in the line of scholarship, in particular, doing a lot of work in not just this type of writing, but also the work that I do in apologetics.
Yeah,
it would be a blast, but it has to include the coffee shop. I need the coffee to keep me going. Coffee is my vice. So a great first episode, a great way to start the second season. We still don't know what's going to happen with Garibaldi yet, though. He's still... We don't know what's going to come out of Delenn's cocoon.
No.
And where's Jakar? But we've got a whole season to answer some of those questions.
Oh, and I think the answers will come sooner than later.
Eventually. No boom today.
We didn't have any boom today.
Boom tomorrow.
Always a boom tomorrow.
Always, always. Good night, my friend.
Good night.
Podcast terminated. Thank you for listening to the Babylon Project podcast. You can email Raul and Jim at the Babylon Project podcast @gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at the Babylon Project Podcast. On the internet, we are at babylonprojectpodcast.wordpress.com. To subscribe to the podcast, you can find us on iTunes, or you can subscribe to the RSS feed on the webpage.